So Kathleen and I were kicking around some possible song ideas, and that one has always been one of my favorites. It has this beautiful idea of seeing forever. I don't know if you ever saw the movie or the musical. It's about past lives and being able to just get a bigger sense of who you are. And on that clear day, it's not really talking about when the skies are clear, it's talking about when you're clear, how you can begin to see into a greater experience of who God has created you to be. It's really an amazing song, and that is what we're talking about tonight, embracing the mystery. There is more than we know. One of the mysterious things that I have been dealing with lately is how many dogs go to hotels nowadays? Have you noticed this? This is a new phenomenon. Do you know this? That used to be you couldn't take your dog to a hotel, and now you can. And it was wonderful when I was moving here. My dog has since passed away, but I was moving here from Reno, and it was easy. Just found places I could just stop in with my dog. So here is why this is. Dogs are welcome in this hotel. We never had a dog that smoked in bed and set fire to the blankets. We never had a dog that stole our towels and played the TV too loud, or had a noisy fight with his traveling companion. We never had a dog that got drunk and broke the furniture. So if your dog can vouch for you, you're welcome to the management. Isn't that great? Thank you, Lyle, for that. So, embracing the mystery. That's what we're talking about. And I went back and I actually saw that I had used this same title for a completely different talk 2 years ago. So if you think you're getting a rerun, you're not. Just the same title. I was thinking about this idea about why is it that sometimes we feel like we need to know? Like everything is on a need-to-know basis. I need to know everything in my life. I was like, what is that about? Why do we feel like we need to have it all figured out? Is it from a sense of security? Is it from a sense of then I can plan. If I know what's happening, I can plan accordingly. I can show up the way that I think is appropriate to the situation. And not knowing can sometimes make us a little nervous. Am I right? Yeah. It's just like if you don't know what's going to happen, you're like walking into, like you new people who are coming to church tonight, you're like going, what's happening here? What are they doing? You're okay. I promise. We're going to be okay. I was recently, and just yesterday, was in Oklahoma with my family and had to do some family business. And my mom was telling me about this experience she had with her sister. She has her younger sister, 10 years younger than she is, and they shop together. They do a lot of things together. And my mom is... I think if she's watching, you said this, you admitted this. I went to my brother's church on Sunday, and he called her old in front of his whole church. She did. I was right there. He said, no filters, no filters. So I thought about this, Mom. I'm filtering a little bit. But my mom has a little bit of a backseat driver. So she and this is not my mom, but I just like that picture. She and my Aunt Donna were driving along, and according to my mom, her side of it, Aunt Donna tends to be a little bit of a slow and cautious driver, to the point where she often stops at green lights, because you never know who's coming. And so she has to, or at least slows down. So the other day, my mom and Aunt Donna, they were driving along, and my Aunt Donna is talking to their brother, my Uncle Eddie, or Uncle Bubba. Truly, I have an Uncle Bubba. That's what a hick I am. And Donna was talking to Bubba, and then and they're coming up to a green light, and Donna's slowing down, and my mom says, Donna, the light's green. And she says, I know it's green, but I thought that person might stand in front of us, or turn in front of us, and it turned into a thing. These girls have been sisters for 60-some years. There's some history going on here, and they all worked it out. Everybody's fine. But it was interesting how my mom was wanting to know what was going on, and my aunt was wanting to know, but they were seeing it differently. They were assigning different meaning to the signal of the green light, and they were assigning different meaning to what their interchange looked like. If you haven't had a chance, if you weren't here on Sunday, go watch Howard's talk from Sunday about the way we assign meaning to things in the world. If we don't know what it means, we will make it up. And what I realized, because yesterday as my mom and I were driving to the airport, I was driving her car, and we kind of knew the way to go there in Tulsa, and then we come up to an intersection, and she's like, well, I think up here you can turn over here and you can get on this on-ramp, it'll take you into the airport entrance. And I was like, yeah, I think we might be able to go straight in this way. And then we come up to the intersection, and it said, go straight for the airport. And she's like, well, here's where you would turn if you want to do that way. And I said, yeah, I know that, but the sign says go straight, so I'm going to go straight. And then she's like, well, okay, but you see, that's where it would go if you went this way. And I said, do you want to drive? And she said, yeah. So, I love that image too. And I thought this was good. They must be honking because they love Jesus. So we laughed about it, and we talked about our need to control. And what I sort of came up about is this: our need to know is a mask for our need to control. Because if we think we can name it, we can figure it out, then we'll be okay. And so we try to control each other. We try and control the situation so that we'll know and that it'll be okay, and then we don't have any unknowns. Then I can move through my life. Except life doesn't work that way. But what I'm hoping to show us tonight on this idea about embracing the mystery is this: I don't know is a perfectly valid answer, and it becomes an opening for God. Because if you know all the answers, you're good. You don't need God. You got this. Have you ever tried to play God in your own life? Or is that just me? Do you do that? And so rather than pretending you do know or making stuff up about what you don't know, trying to get people to act right, what if we could just sit in the I don't know and recognize that God uses that opening of I don't know to reveal something for us, to us, and through us. As I was preparing for tonight's lesson, I kept thinking about Brother Jesus, that he has some wonderful, wonderful teachings. And I was thinking about which of the stories or the teachings that he gave that I would want to bring in tonight. And what I was noticing is that I picked up a theme that I hadn't really put my thumb on before. It was that through many of Jesus' teachings, he is taking us to a deeper place, taking us to a higher way of seeing it. That, if you remember, I talked on Sunday a couple of weeks ago, and I used the parable of the Good Samaritan, which Karen also used on July 9th. But it started with a question from an expert in the law to Jesus who said, what's the most important law, or how can I live the law? And Jesus said, what? No, Jesus asked him, what is the most important law? And you remember what he said? It's to love the Lord your God with all your mind, with all your heart, with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And so Jesus, being an observant Jew in the first century, there were a lot of rules to follow in the Judaic law, the Mosaic law that was handed down, what we call the Old Testament, what is in the Hebrew Bible. And those laws are still practiced by the Orthodox Jews today. It's still it's a sacred way of being in the world by following those laws. And Jesus said the laws are good, but what's it really pointing us to? And in that story is love. That the greatest law is to love. That the laws are here to point us to something beyond the human, beyond the mundane, beyond the details of who's right and what's happening and how do I control it. Beyond all of this stuff is a higher, deeper way of living here in the world, of love. And Jesus also said, I did not come to abolish the law. He says, here's the passage, this is in Matthew. All of this that I want to share with you tonight comes from the Sermon on the Mount, which scholars agree is the purest of Jesus' teachings that have come down to us, that this is very likely, very close to what this wonderful man actually taught. He said, I do not think that I've come to abolish the law of the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. meaning that what the law and the rules of religion are trying to get us to is be in alignment with divine reality, and so that's good. And so when we are seeking to, we're not going to do away with the law because you need it, but there's this greater thing that wants to happen, is actually to live in that divine reality. He says, "For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter or the stroke of the pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside even one of these commandments and teaches others accordingly would be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven." And here's the kicker. He was working an angle here. Jesus says in verse 20, "For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter into the kingdom of heaven." What you talking about, G? What the heck is that? Because he just said the law is great. Those who teach it are doing a wonderful service about getting us into the kingdom. But then he says there at the end that unless your righteousness, right standing with divine reality, with God, unless you're greater than the ones who follow the law the best, you won't get into the kingdom of heaven. Well, that's impossible, isn't it? This is a deep teaching that Jesus is offering us here. That there is something beyond our human knowing and doing that is that which ushers us into the kingdom of heaven. And this theme comes back again in the same chapter, in the same passage. He says this in Matthew 6. "Do not store up treasures for yourself, treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there is your heart also." It's a similar thing. I don't know if you can see the commonality here. He's talking about the law is made so we have rules on how we work with possessions and properties and marriage and all this stuff, and you follow those rules. But there's something beyond the rules that is actually what gets us into heaven. And he's saying the same thing here. There's this idea that there are things we treasure. Treasures, we think of them as being belongings, things we care for. And where we put our attention and our love, that's where our heart is. And Jesus is saying, don't do it with the things of earth. There is a higher and a greater reality that we need to be placing our heart upon. What is that greater reality? It comes again a little bit later in the same chapter. This is one of my favorite verses. I'm going to read you the whole little bit of the verse leading up to it. If I can get my little iPad to cooperate, I will. There we go. This is a whole passage where Jesus is teaching about worrying. And he says, don't worry about anything in your life. I'm really having trouble with this tonight. Pray for me, y'all. Something is, maybe I'm not supposed to read it. There we go. Don't worry about anything in life, what you'll eat or drink or your body or what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body and the clothes? Look at the birds in the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that even Solomon in all his glory was not dressed as one of these. And if that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after these things, and your heavenly Father knows you need them. But seek first his kingdom and righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will will worry about itself. Each day has trouble enough of its own. I thought it was just us that were worried about what we're going to eat and drink and how we're going to make our car payment and what are we going to do with my aunt that's acting crazy. I thought it was just us. Turns out this is a human condition that's been going on a long time. Who knew? You thought it was just your mom that worried, but no. This was happening 2,000 years ago. And Jesus is addressing it. He's saying, this stuff you're placing your energy on, your treasure, your attention, all of this stuff that you're putting your attention on, it's keeping you from the great stuff of life. It's keeping you from the great reality, which is the kingdom of heaven, which is a lived experience of supply from divine source. It's a lived experience of love and appreciation and fulfillment of your gifts, of who you are. That's what it's about. And when you put all of your time and your attention on the worries of this life, of this earthly experience, you're missing it. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all of these things will be given to you. This is a code. It's actually not even a code, it just says it in black and white. It's just telling you this is the way to live your life. To put God first. To seek to live in right relationship with reality. You know, I've been talking about when we praise in unity, we're not lowly, lesser beings appraising some distant, great deity in heaven. That's not what we do in praise and unity. We're aligning ourselves with the truth of our own nature. Jesus said, don't you know you're the light of the world? And when we praise, we go, yes, we praise God, and that is who we are in expression. That we get in touch with what's real, what's really real, which is your divinity. And when you speak from that, and when you seek to live a life of love and recognition of love, then you're in alignment, and life begins to cooperate. But it's when we get this idea, this struggle with I need to know, that we start playing God in our own life. We start manipulating situations and people, and we try and make it work out the way we think it should work out, and it doesn't work. I'm saving you the trouble. If you thought about trying some of that, it doesn't work. But instead, if you will embrace the mystery of not knowing what's going to happen and how it's going to turn out, but instead seek to live in love. Seek to live in that space of trusting, of faith, of knowing that you know what, I could say this quote so much, but it really brings it home for me. Emerson said, the fact that I am here shows me that the soul had need of an organ. Shall I not assume the post? You're not here by accident. God hasn't forgotten about you. You're here on purpose. To step into your life of love and faith and peace and joy. That's who you are. There's a gospel song that I love that says, God, may we seek your face and not your hand. And what that means is to seek right relationship with reality rather than using spiritual principles to get you stuff. Am I preaching a little close to the bone again? If you just use spiritual principles to control the conditions of your life, you're going to be disappointed. But if you use the spiritual principles to remember who you are and live as an angel of love on earth, the stuff will come because you need it. The people you need, they'll come because you need them. And you're no longer in this resistant, controlling frame. And so how do we do it? How do we seek God's face? How do we seek first the kingdom of God? Well, it was easy for me because I drank myself into a really bad situation, and I couldn't live my own life. This was many years ago. It was very abundantly clear that I knew nothing about running my own life. My last resort was to seek God, to seek a spiritual solution to my problems, to surrender to something that I didn't understand. You know, it's one of the reasons that so many people from 12 Steps end up coming into unity, because a lot of the language in 12 Steps is it's the God of our own understanding. If the God that you came in here tonight with is mad at you, you need to fire him. That's not the God that's going to usher you into the kingdom of love and light. So what we do, what's that thing Arthur Johnson always says? I love this, that when you're down to nothing, God is up to something. And so if you're tired of trying to control and manipulate and get it all working just the way you think it should, if that's beginning to wear on you, I suggest you surrender. Surrender is giving in. It is not giving up. I've been saying that a lot lately, except I realize sometimes it is giving up. So I contradict myself. But what we're giving up is our limited idea of who we are and how God can use us and bless us and heal us. What we're giving up is our small mind with our limited perception of how my good's going to come to me. Have you ever been in one of those situations that you have one small, very narrow way that it has to be for you to be okay? Have you ever done that? And then if it works out, great. But when it doesn't, what do? I have done that. And what I'm seeking to learn and seeking to live and to embrace is this idea that God has infinite channels of good. And when I let go of this one clenched fist idea of this is what I need for my life to be okay, particularly when I need other people to change for me to be okay. Yeah. When I begin to release that, just invite you to do that. Just clench your fist for a moment. Just see how, and get that tight feeling there. You can feel it all the way up your arm. You can feel the rigidity of it. And now just breathe out and open the hand. Can you feel that? Something in you expands. And if you just use that as a metaphor, the open hand, how much more can you receive in this? So surrender, giving up that limited, tight-fisted way of being in relationship with life. This image of the seed that is sprouting. I love this metaphor of the seed. Seeds are very nice, compact little packages of potentiality. And you can keep it in your hand or on the shelf for a long time, and it's going to look exactly like that. It's going to keep itself perfectly in place, and it's going to just be wonderful. But if you want it to fulfill its potential, what do? You plant it. Usually someplace where you can't see and meddle. Have you ever tried to plant a seed and then dig it up to make sure it's sprouting and correcting, germinating? It doesn't work. What's required? Faith, surrender. You put it in, you do your work, you water, you put it in the right place, the right depth, you do the right things that you know to do, and that's the extent of your control in the situation, and then you open it, your hand, and you allow something, some mysterious something. Who here knows the processes of exactly what happens to make a seed become a living plant? Do any of you have that all figured out? Even any botanists in here? I'm sure we could measure it, and we could work it out, but most of us don't know that, but we trust that it happens. And so there's this beautiful surrender, this wonderful allowing, this incredible embracing the mystery every time we plant a seed. Speaking of surrender and the seed, that wonderful, compact, little, nice, uniform body that the seed has, what must happen to that if it's going to fulfill its destiny? It must disintegrate. It gives its own essence, gives it up for the greater good of the thing that is yet to be. See, in the metaphor I've switched, you're no longer the gardener, now you're the seed. You have been planted. You have been planted right here on earth. Yes, in that family. Yes, in that job. Yes, in this church. You have been planted to reveal some greatness that you haven't even known about yourself yet. Some possibility of expression. If you plant a seed, you might get a rough idea of what the plant will look like, but you don't know how many blossoms it's going to put forth. You don't know how many branches the tree, you don't know. There's a mystery. What's the saying that you can count the seeds in an apple, but you can never count the apples in a seed? And in order for the seed to fulfill its destiny, it surrenders its perfect, controlled, perfectly outlined form, gives it up so that something else may happen. What is being asked of all of us at every stage of our lives, I know you're on a spiritual path or you wouldn't be here. If you've committed to a spiritual path, that means you are seeking God's face. You are seeking to live a life of alignment and fulfillment of your destiny. And in every moment of and every stage of this life, you are being asked to surrender the form that has gotten you this far. To surrender what you know about what the next chapter is going to look like. And trust that it's going to be amazing. Amazing. I did not know I was going to be giving a talk tonight on control. I thought I was talking about this wonderful idea of embracing the mystery. See? Freudian slip, yeah. You caught me. Thanks, Sigmund. Yeah. Embracing the mystery of what is to be. To be willing to put yourself out there. Try it. Walk through the open door. Even though you don't know what the room looks like on the other side. Can you draw the map of a place you've never been? You can't. You can talk to other people that have been there. You can look at maps they've drawn. But that's not entering into the kingdom. The thing that is being asked of you, take a breath, is to surrender the small and limited idea of who you are and step into the greatness of who God knows you to be. God bless you.